My wife cheated during my deployment, so I came home, fought for my daughter, and destroyed them. The late afternoon Minnesota sun cast long shadows across the suburban landscape as Clay Reed turned onto his street. His hands gripped the steering wheel of his truck, anticipation building in his chest. 10 months. 10 months of sand, sweat, and missing his family. 10 months of video calls that never lasted long enough. Of missing Sophie's first-grade moments, of dreaming about holding his wife again. The familiar two-story house came into view, its white siding glowing in the golden hour light. Something seemed off. The flower beds Celeste, usually maintained with religious devotion, looked neglected, weeds pushing through the mulch. The grass needed cutting, and their son's old bike lay abandoned near the garage instead of stored properly. Clay pulled into the driveway, killing the engine. The silence felt heavy, wrong. No squealing 7-year-old running out to greet him, no sign of Celeste's car in the garage. His combat-trained instincts hummed with unease. He grabbed his military duffel from the truck bed, boots crunching on loose gravel as he approached the front door. The brass key felt cold in his hand. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. No TV cartoons, no clattering dishes, none of the normal sounds of his family's evening routine. Sophie, Celeste. His voice echoed through the entryway. The house smelled different, an unfamiliar cologne lingering beneath the usual sense of home. A small voice piped up from the living room. "Daddy!" Clay rounded the corner, and there she was, his little girl sprawled on her stomach on the carpet. Colored pencils scattered around her like fallen rainbows. Her dark pigtails bobbed as she jumped up, artwork forgotten. "Daddy, you're really home!" He dropped his duffel, catching her as she launched herself at him. She had grown taller, but she still smelled like strawberry shampoo and crayons. His throat tightened as he held her close, memorizing the feel of her in his arms. "I missed you so much, princess." He pulled back to study her face. Celeste's delicate features, but his determined chin. She had a new gap where her front teeth used to be, another milestone he missed. "You've gotten so big. I lost 2 teeth, Sophie demonstrated by poking her tongue through the gaps. "And I'm the tallest girl in my class now. Mom says, I get that from you." Speaking of Mom, Clay kept his voice casual. "Where is she?" Sophie wiggled out of his arms and returned to her artwork. "She's on a date with her boyfriend. They go out lots. He takes us to fancy restaurants sometimes, and Mom says, he's going to be my new daddy." The words hit Clay like a physical blow, worse than any combat injury. He knelt beside his daughter. "What boyfriend, sweetheart, Mark?" Sophie selected a purple pencil, completely focused on her drawing. "He comes over lots when you're gone. Sometimes he stays overnight for sleepovers with Mom. She gets all dressed up and giggly around him." Clay's vision blurred red at the edges. He breathed deeply through his nose. Years of military discipline, the only thing keeping his voice steady. "Does Mark come over often?" Almost every weekend." Sophie held up her drawing stick figures of what appeared to be her, Celeste, and a tall male figure standing in front of what looked like animal cages. "See, that's us at the zoo last month. Mark bought me ice cream and a stuffed penguin. Mom said not to tell you about our special trips. But since you're home now, it's okay, right?" Clay's jaw clenched so hard his teeth creaked. Special trips? Secrets from Daddy. His wife wasn't just betraying him, she was teaching their daughter to lie to him. That was nice of him. He managed. "Do you like Mark?" Sophie shrugged, already starting a new drawing. "He's okay. He gives me presents, but he talks to me like I'm a baby, and sometimes when he stays over, they're really loud. Especially in Mom's room, and I can't sleep." Bile rose in Clay's throat. He swallowed hard, forcing down the rage, threatening to overwhelm him. "Does Mark work somewhere nearby?" "He owns lots of gas stations." Sophie wrinkled her nose. "That's why he always smells funny, like the stuff you put in cars. Gasoline." "Yeah, but I like how you smell better, Daddy." Sophie abandoned her drawing and climbed into his lap. "Are you going to make me another fairy house for my dolls? The old one got broken when Mark was moving furniture around." Clay wrapped his arms around her, anger wearing with a need to protect her from the ugly truth. "Of course, princess. How about we go check out my workshop tomorrow? You can help me design it." "Really?" Sophie beamed up at him. "Can we paint it pink with glitter?" "Whatever you want." He ruffled her hair, noticing it needed washing. "Have you had dinner yet?" "No. Mom said they'd bring me something back." Clay checked his watch. 7:30 p.m. His 7-year-old daughter hadn't been fed. Another strike against Celeste. "How about I make us some mac and cheese with the shapes and extra cheese?" "You got it, kiddo." He stood, lifting her onto his shoulders. She squealed with delight as he carried her to the kitchen. As he moved around the familiar space, filling a pot with water and gathering ingredients, Clay's mind raced. The kitchen showed signs of neglect. Dishes in the sink, counters needing wiping. Sophie's breakfast bowl still sitting on the table. This wasn't like Celeste. She'd always been meticulous about housekeeping. "Daddy," Sophie's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Are you mad?" Clay paused and stirring the pasta. "Why do you ask that, princess? You're making your mad face. Are you mad that Mom's not here?" "No, sweetheart." Clay measured his words carefully. "I just missed you both very much. Tell me more about school. How's Miss Thompson's class?" Sophie launched into a detailed description of her teacher, her best friend Emma, and the class hamster she got to take home last weekend. Clay listened, asking questions at the right moments. While his mind cataloged every detail she inadvertently revealed about Celeste's behavior during his deployment, they were halfway through their meal when headlights swept across the kitchen window. Clay heard car doors followed by laughing voices and the click of high heels on the walkway. His hand tightened on his fork until his knuckles went white. The front door opened. "Sophie, honey, we brought you a burger," and Celeste's voice cut off as she entered the kitchen. She froze in the doorway, a man hovering behind her. Clay took in every detail with cold precision. Her cocktail dress was new, black and shorter than anything she'd worn when they dated. Diamond earrings he didn't recognize caught the light. Mark's hand rested possessively on her waist. Executive type, expensive watch, artificial tan. The kind of man who never worked an honest day in his life. "Clay," Celeste's voice was breathless. Her pupils dilated. He recognized the signs of too many cocktails. "You're home early, right on schedule." Actually, he kept his tone neutral for Sophie's sake. 10 months, just like I said in my last 3 emails, the ones you didn't answer. Mark stepped forward, trying for a winning smile. His teeth were too white, too perfect. "Hey man, I'm Mark. Get out." Clay's voice could have frozen hell itself. Now Mark glanced at Celeste, who nodded slightly. He backed away, the door clicking shut behind him. The sound echoed in the tense silence. "Sophie, sweetie." Celeste's voice was artificially bright, though Clay could hear the slight slur in her words. "Why don't you go up and get ready for bed? I'll be up in a minute to tuck you in." "But I'm not done with my mac and cheese," Sophie protested, looking between her parents with growing anxiety. "It's okay, princess." Clay managed to smile for his daughter. "You can finish up in your room. Take your bowl and be careful not to spill." "Okay, I'll come check on you in a little bit." Once Sophie's footsteps faded upstairs, Clay turned to his wife. The rage he'd been containing threatened to explode. "Clay, I can explain." "Explain what?" His voice was deadly quiet. "How you've been bringing another man in our bed. How you parade him around our daughter. How you let him play daddy while I'm serving our country. You're never here," Celeste hissed, her carefully maintained composure cracking. "What did you expect me to do? Sit around waiting for your 2 weeks of leave every year? I have needs, Clay. I deserve someone who puts me first." "Puts you first?" Clay laughed without humor. "You mean someone with money? Someone who buys you new diamonds and takes you to fancy restaurants while our daughter goes hungry? Don't be dramatic. Sophie's fine." Celeste waved dismissively. "At least Mark has ambition. What do you have? A bunch of wood and sawdust. Your precious craft furniture barely pays the bills. I deserve better than being a military wife stuck in this boring suburb. And Sophie, does she deserve a mother who lets her go hungry while she's out whoring around?" Celeste's hand cracked across his face. Clay didn't flinch. He'd taken worse hits sparring with his unit. "Don't you dare judge me," she snarled, mask completely gone now. "I've already talked to a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce and full custody. No judge will give a child to an unstable veteran with PTSD. Clay stepped closer, using his height to loom over her. "You really want to play that game? Fine, but remember this. You started this war and I don't lose. Is that a threat?" Celeste's eyes gleamed with malicious triumph. "Thanks for giving me something else to tell my lawyer. They love it when veterans make threats. It's a promise." Clay's voice was pure ice. "You betrayed me, betrayed our family, and I never forgive betrayal. We'll see about that." Celeste tossed her hair, heading for the stairs. The slight stumble in her walk betrayed how much she'd had to drink. "I'm going to check on my daughter." "Our daughter," Clay corrected. For now, after she left, Clay stood in the kitchen, mind already strategizing. He needed a lawyer, the best he could find. He needed evidence. Most of all, he needed to protect Sophie from whatever scheme Celeste was plotting. His phone was in his hand before he consciously decided to move. A quick search brought up several local divorce attorneys. One name caught his eye, Denise Harper. The reviews painted a clear picture. "Miss Harper saved my children from their abusive mother, ruthless in court, worth every penny. She saw through my ex's manipulation and destroyed their case. Perfect." Clay booked an appointment for first thing tomorrow. Then he headed to his workshop, unlocking the familiar space that smelled of wood and varnish. This was his sanctuary, where rough lumber became beautiful, functional pieces that would last generations. Celeste might mock his chosen profession, but his craftsmanship had earned him a loyal customer base and steady income. He pulled out a fresh notebook, beginning to document everything Sophie had inadvertently revealed about Celeste's activities, dates, times, patterns of neglect, the drinking, the inappropriate overnight visits, teaching Sophie to keep secrets from him. By the time he finished, his handwriting had steadied and his mind was clear. Celeste thought she could use his military service against him. She had no idea what she was up against. Clay Reed didn't just survive combat, he excelled at it, and this was one fight he couldn't afford to lose. The next morning, Clay sat in Denise Harper's office, taking in the younger woman's sharp suit and sharper eyes. Her office spoke of success, original art on the walls, a view of downtown, leather furniture that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage payment. She reviewed his hastily compiled notes with growing interest. "So, your wife has been carrying on an affair during your deployment?" Denise summarized, her pen tapping against the legal pad. "Bringing the man around your daughter, neglecting basic parental duties, drinking excessively, and now threatening to use your service record against you in a custody battle." "That's right." Clay's voice was clipped. "Good," he blinked. "Good, Mr. Reed. Your wife has handed us everything we need to destroy her in court." Denise leaned forward, her eyes intense. "She's counting on the veteran angle to paint you as unstable. But any judge worth their salt will see through that. You've maintained steady employment with your furniture business, no history of violence or mental health issues, and a clear dedication to your daughter's well-being." She continued flipping through his notes. "Meanwhile, we have documented evidence of your wife's adultery, her prioritizing her lover over her child's needs, and her attempt to alienate your daughter from you. The court doesn't look kindly on parents who use children as weapons." "Celeste won't go down easily," Clay warned. "She's calculating, manipulative. So am I." Denise's smile was predatory. "And I have one thing she doesn't, the truth on my side. Now, let's talk strategy. I want you to start keeping detailed records of everything. Times she leaves Sophie alone, inappropriate comments about you to your daughter, every penny she spends on her boyfriend instead of family necessities. The more ammunition we have, the better." Clay nodded, already planning. "What about Sophie? How do I protect her through this? Be the stable parent. Maintain her routine, stay involved in her school and activities. Most importantly, never badmouth Celeste in front of her. Let your wife dig her own grave with her behavior. And if Celeste tries to turn Sophie against me," Denise's expression hardened, "then we use that too. Parental alienation is a serious offense in family court. Document everything, Mr. Reed, every manipulation, every lie, every time she puts her boyfriend ahead of your daughter. Build me an arsenal and I'll make sure you win this war." Clay stood, shaking her hand firmly. "Thank you, Miss Harper. I won't let you down. One more thing." Denise's grip was strong, professional. "Your wife's going to play dirty. She'll try to provoke you, push your buttons. Don't give her the satisfaction. Stay cool, stay professional, and let me handle the fighting." "Understood." Clay's military training would serve him well here. Maintaining discipline under fire was something he knew well. As he drove to his workshop, Clay's mind churned with plans. He'd been blindsided by Celeste's betrayal, but he wouldn't be caught off guard again. She wanted a war? Fine. He'd give her one. He pulled up to the familiar building that housed his furniture business. The smell of sawdust and wood stain greeted him as he unlocked the door. This was his sanctuary, where he created beautiful things with his hands. Each piece told a story, held a purpose beyond mere furniture. Clay moved through the workshop, running his hands over the half-finished pieces, waiting for his return. The president was the piece, a rocking chair commissioned for new parents, a dining table that would become a family's gathering place. Each one represented trust. His customers believed in his skill, his integrity. Unlike his marriage, these relationships were built on solid foundations. Clay sat at his workbench, memories flooding back. He had built this business from scratch while still on active duty, starting with small projects in his garage. Weekends and leave time spent building his skills, learning from master craftsmen, developing his own techniques. Celeste had supported him then, or at least pretended to. He remembered her sitting on his workbench 8 years ago, pregnant with Sophie, watching him work on their first nursery furniture. "Our daughter will have the most beautiful crib in Minnesota," she had said, rubbing her belly. He'd spent weeks perfecting every detail of that crib, later converting it to a toddler bed. Now, it sat gathering dust in their attic, replaced by some mass-produced pink monstrosity Mark had probably bought. The betrayal cut deeper with each new realization, every memory now tainted by doubt. How long had she been planning this? Had anything in their marriage been real? His phone buzzed. A text from Sophie's school parent-teacher conferences next week. He added it to his growing documentation. Showing up for these things, maintaining normally for Sophie, would be crucial in the custody battle ahead. The workshop door chimed. Martha Chun, one of his regular customers, walked in carrying coffee in a paper bag. "Clay, you're back." She set the items on his desk. "Brought you some breakfast. Tommy told me he saw your truck this morning." Clay managed a genuine smile. Martha had been his first major client, commissioning a dining set that led to dozens of referrals. Her husband owned the coffee shop down the street. "Just got in yesterday," he said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "How's the table holding up?" "Perfect. Like everything you make." Martha's sharp eyes studied his face. "But you look like hell, honey. Everything okay?" Clay hesitated. Martha was well connected in the community. Having local support might matter later. "Celeste and I are separating," he said quietly. "She's been seeing someone else while I was deployed." Martha's face darkened. "That little," she caught herself. "I knew something was off. Saw her at Riverside Plaza a couple months back, hanging all over some guy in a fancy suit. Thought maybe I was mistaken, Mark." Clay confirmed. "Gas station owner." "Gas stations, huh?" Martha snorted. "Try one rundown quick stop on Route 7. Man's all talk cheap cologne. Drives that leased BMW like he owns it." Clay filed this information away. "You seem to know a lot about him." "Honey, I've been serving coffee in this town for 30 years. I know everything about everyone." She patted his hand. "And I know you're twice the man that sleeball is. You need anything character witness? Dirt on him? Whatever you just ask." "Thanks, Martha." After she left, Clay added her information to his notes. Mark's business situation was apparently less impressive than Celeste believed, another potential angle to explore. He spent the next hour returning calls from clients, scheduling deliveries and consultations. Life had to go on. Business had to run. He couldn't let Celeste destroy everything he'd built. Around noon, his phone rang again. Sophie's school. "Mr. Reed, this is Nurse Williams. Sophie's not feeling well. She's running a slight fever." Clay was already grabbing his keys. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. He called Celeste on the way, straight to voicemail, of course. Sophie was curled up on the nurse's office cot, looking small and miserable. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Daddy!" "Hey, princess." He felt her forehead. "Definitely warm. Let's get you home." "I tried calling Mrs. Reed first," the nurse said apologetically. "I know. Thank you." Clay signed the release forms. "She's unavailable." At home, he got Sophie settled on the couch with her favorite blanket and cartoons. Her fever wasn't high enough to worry about. Probably just a cold. But he made note of Celeste's unavailability during a school emergency. "Want some soup, kiddo?" Sophie nodded. "The chicken star's kind. Mom forgot to buy more." Another note. Clay found a can in the back of the pantry, noting how bare the shelves were. While the soup heated, he did a quick inventory of the house. Laundry overflowing, mail unopened, Sophie's homework folder unsigned for the past week. His phone buzzed. Celeste, finally returning his call. "What's so urgent?" "Our daughter is sick," Clay said evenly. "School tried to reach you. I was in a meeting." She sounded irritated. "She's probably faking to get attention. She does that. She has a fever." "Well, I can't leave work right now. Mark has investors coming." "Don't worry about it," Clay cut her off. "I've got it covered like always." He hung up before she could respond, documenting the conversation. More evidence of her priorities. The afternoon passed quietly. Clay worked on his laptop while Sophie dozed, catching up on orders and emails. Around 4, his phone buzzed again. Denise Harper. "Mr. Reed, I've been reviewing your situation. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Bring any financial records, military paperwork, and custody preferences you have in mind. The sooner we file, the better. She'll try to file first. Letter." Denise sounded confident. "First filing doesn't matter. What matters is who has the stronger case. Just keep documenting everything." After hanging up, Clay looked at his sleeping daughter. Rage, the hurt, had to take a back seat to protecting her. His laptop pinged with an email notification. New commission request. "Dear Mr. Reed, My wife and I saw your work at the Chun residence. Would love to discuss a custom bedroom set. Clay began typing a response. Life moved forward. He had a business to run, a daughter to protect, and a war to win. Celeste thought she could break him. She'd learn what real strength looked like. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of soup, temperature checks, and gentle reassurance. Sophie's fever broke around bedtime, but Clay let her sleep in his room just in case. He lay awake, listening to her breathing, mind churning with plans and strategies. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and battles, but tonight was for his daughter. Everything else could wait. As he finally drifted off, Clay's last thought was of his combat training. Rule 1: know your enemy. Celeste had shown her true colors, revealed her weapons. Now, it was his turn to fight back. The war for Sophie's future had begun, and Clay Reed intended to win. 3 weeks after Clay's return, the morning sun filtered through his workshop windows, catching dust motes dancing above half-finished furniture. He stood at his workbench, phone pressed to his ear, listening to Denise Harper's update with growing tension. So, Celeste filed this morning, Denise said without preamble. Right when the courthouse opened. What's her play? Everything we expected, and then some. Claims of PTSD, emotional instability, implied threats of violence. That's bull and you know it, Clay cut in. I've never raised a hand to her or Sophie, which is exactly why this works in our favor. Keys clicked rapidly in the background. She's overplaying her hand, Clay, making claims she can't back up. But we have a more immediate problem. Sophie's teacher called me 20 minutes ago. The silence stretched for a moment as Clay processed this. Miss Thompson, why would she call you? Because Celeste had a private meeting with her yesterday. Denise's voice hardened. Suddenly, Sophie's telling stories about being afraid of you. The coffee mug in Clay's hand shattered, ceramic shards scattering across his workbench. Hot liquid splashed over his plans for a customer's dining set, but he barely noticed. That fast, he kept his voice level through sheer force of will. She's already poisoning our daughter against me. This is actually good news, Clay. We can use this. Denise's voice held grim satisfaction. I've already subpoenaed the teacher for her records. Want to guess who attended every single parent-teacher conference before your deployment? Me. Exactly. And who's been missing them since? Celeste. We're building a pattern. Paper rustled on Denise's end. The teacher's also required to document all parent meetings. Celeste didn't know that when she went in to spin her tales. How's Sophie acting at home? Clay's eyes. She flinched when he reached for the salt. Different. Nervous. Like she was waiting for something bad to happen. Document everything. Video if possible. Judges don't look kindly on parental alienation, especially when we can prove it's a recent development. After hanging up, Clay cleaned up the broken mug, mind racing. He needed allies, witnesses who could testify to his relationship with Sophie before Celeste started poisoning minds against him. The workshop door chimed. Jessica Vargas walked in carrying a paper bag that smelled of grilled onions and her diner's famous burgers. Thought you might need lunch, she said, setting the bag down. Martha mentioned things were getting rough. Clay had gotten to know Jessica over the past weeks, grabbing coffee at her diner between lawyer meetings. She understood his situation intimately. She'd fought her own custody battle 3 years ago. Celeste filed today, he said, accepting the burger she offered. She's already turning Sophie against me. Jessica's warm, brown eyes hardened. Mike tried that, used our son as a weapon. She perched on a nearby stool, her waitress apron still dusted with flour. Want to know what saved me? What? Documentation. Videos of every happy moment. Photos of every mother-son activity. Security footage from my diner showing him dropping Tommy off drunk for his visitation. She leaned forward. Show the court who you really are, not who she claims you are. Clay nodded slowly, mind working. Sophie's got a dance recital next week. I always attend. Even had my unit record some while I was deployed so she could see me watching. Perfect. Keep showing up. Keep being her dad. Jessica's expression softened. And when you need to vent, my diner's always open. Sometimes you just need someone who gets it. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. Rowan Panspotion, his latest commission, her diner's new breakfast menu, the upcoming community festival. For the first time in weeks, Clay felt his shoulders relax slightly. Later that afternoon, he picked Sophie up from school. She climbed into his truck quietly, none of her usual chatter about recess adventures or art projects. "How was your day, Princess?" Sophie clutched her backpack tighter. "Okay, just okay. No exciting art projects, no playground adventures with Emma." She shrugged, staring out the window at passing cars. "Mom says you get angry a lot," she whispered finally, "because of the war stuff. She says sometimes you might hurt people like on TV." The words cut deeper than any combat wound. Clay pulled into an empty church parking lot, turning to face his daughter. "Sophie, look at me." He waited until she met his eyes. "Have I ever hurt you ever?" She shook her head, pigtails swaying. "Have I ever hurt Mom or anyone else?" "No." Her voice was small. "The war was hard, yes, but you know what got me through it? Thinking about coming home to you, looking at your pictures, watching those videos you sent of your dance classes." He kept his voice gentle but firm. "You're my princess, Sophie. I will never, ever hurt you." Sophie's lower lip trembled. "Promise? Pinky promise?" He held out his finger solemnly. "Want to help me in the workshop today? I'm building a special surprise." Her eyes lit up slightly. "What kind of surprise?" "Well, someone ordered a dollhouse, but they want it painted pink." For the first time that day, Sophie smiled. It was a small victory, but Clay would take it. The next morning brought fresh challenges. Celeste had scheduled an emergency parent-to-teacher conference, knowing Clay had a court preparation meeting. "Miss Thompson." Clay kept his voice professionally pleasant as he stood in the classroom doorway. "I understand there's an emergency." The teacher looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers on her desk. "Mrs. Reed said Sophie's been having troubles at home. Did she mention these troubles started right after she began coaching Sophie on what to say?" Clay pulled out his phone, pulling up a video from last weekend. Sophie laughing as they worked on the dollhouse together, her small hands helping him sand the wooden walls. Miss Thompson's expression shifted as she watched. "She seems very happy there because she is—" Clay swiped to another video, Sophie's last dance recital, her face lighting up when she spotted him in the audience. "I have hundreds of videos like this. Would you like to see her reaction when I surprised her at her school play, or when we built her first fairy house?" The teacher sat heavily at her desk. "Mr. Reed, I need to be honest. Mrs. Reed has been suggesting things about your military service, your temper. Has Sophie ever seemed afraid of me before the past week?" "No, never." Miss Thompson straightened in her chair. "In fact, she used to talk about you constantly during show and tell. Brought in pictures of the things you built her. She was so proud." Clay nodded. "I'd appreciate it if you document this conversation. My lawyer will be in touch." Another small victory, but the war was far from over. That evening, he met Jessica for coffee at her diner. The place was quiet, most customers gone for the day. The coffee machine hummed softly in the background. "Rough day?" she asked, sliding into the booth across from him. "Celeste is working overtime to paint me as the villain." Clay described the school incident. "Sophie barely talks to me now, flinches when I move too fast." Jessica reached across the table, squeezing his hand. Her skin was warm, slightly rough from work. "Kids are resilient. Keep showing up. Keep loving her. The truth always comes out." Their eyes met, held. Something sparked in the air between them. The moment shattered as Clay's phone buzzed. "Denise, we got a problem," his lawyer said without preamble. "Celeste's lawyer is pushing for an emergency custody hearing, claiming Sophie's showing signs of trauma." Clay's jaw clenched. "She's showing signs of her mother's manipulation." "Exactly. But we need more than your word. I'm calling in Dr. Sarah Chun. She's a child psychologist who specializes in custody cases. She'll observe Sophie's interactions with both parents. When? Tomorrow. Don't tell Celeste. We need to catch her off guard." The next day was a study in controlled chaos. Dr. Sarah Chun set up her observation room with careful precision, recording equipment, age-appropriate toys, and a one-way mirror for viewing interactions. "Mr. Reed," she said, reviewing her notes. "I'll observe Sophie with each parent separately, then together. We're looking for natural behavior patterns." Clay nodded. "What do you need from me?" "Just be natural. Play with her like you would at home." Dr. Chun's dark eyes were sharp. "And Mr. Reed, children are excellent truth detectors. Remember that?" Sophie entered, clutching her favorite stuffed penguin, the one Mark had bought her, Clay noted with a twinge. "Aye, princess," he said softly. "Want to see what Dr. Chun has in her toy box?" Sophie glanced uncertainly between them before moving to the blocks. Clay sat, cross-legged on the floor nearby, not crowding her. "That's a cool tower you're building," he commented after a few minutes. "It's a castle," Sophie corrected, adding another block. "For fairy princesses, my mistake. Does it need a workshop for building fairy furniture?" A small smile, maybe a tiny one, for dollhouse-sized fairy houses. They fell into their usual rhythm, Sophie directing, Clay offering suggestions. Both focused on the growing creation. Dr. Chun made notes in the background, forgotten. Then Celeste arrived for her session. The change was immediate. Sophie's shoulders hunched, her movements became hesitant. "Hello, sweetie," Celeste's voice dripped. "Honey, remember what we talked about? About Daddy's angry times?" Sophie clutched her penguin tighter. "I don't want to talk about that. It's okay to tell the nice doctor if you're scared, Mrs. Reed." Dr. Chun interrupted sharply. "Please refrain from coaching Sophie." Celeste's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing fury beneath. "I'm trying to protect my daughter from..." "From what exactly?" Dr. Chun's voice remained mild. "Sophie, would you like to play with those blocks while I talk to your parents?" Once Sophie was occupied across the room, Dr. Chun turned to Celeste. "Mrs. Reed, I've observed clear signs of parental alienation. You're actively attempting to damage Sophie's relationship with her father." "That's ridiculous." Celeste's voice rose. "Clay's the one. Your daughter shows no natural fear of her father. The anxiety only appears after your interactions, particularly when you prompt her about angry times or being scared. You don't understand. He's manipulating all of you using his charm, his stupid wooden toys, by letting Sophie play naturally, by responding to her cues rather than forcing conversations about fear." Dr. Chun made a note on her pad. "I'll be submitting my full report to the court, Mrs. Reed." Findings. His lawyer's office smelled of leather and coffee, case files spread across her mahogany desk. "This is exactly what we needed," Denise said, tapping one particular report. "Clear, professional documentation of Celeste's manipulation, combined with the teacher statement and your videos, we're building a solid case." "But Sophie's still suffering," Clay said quietly. "Every day this drags on hurts her more." "Then let's end it." Denise's smile was predatory. "I've been doing some digging into Mark's businesses. Want to guess how many of those gas stations actually exist?" Clay leaned forward. "Tell me." "One, and it's mortgaged to the hilt." "He's broke, Clay. The fancy car, the restaurants, the gifts, all smoking mirrors." She pulled out a stack of financial records. "But that's not the best part. Look at these transfers from your joint account." Clay scanned the numbers, jaw tightening. She's been funneling money to him, 30,000 over the past 6 months. "Want to bet those weren't authorized transactions?" "Use it all." Clay's voice was hard. "Whatever it takes to protect Sophie." The next morning brought another confrontation. Celeste showed up at his workshop unannounced, Mark hovering behind her like an expensive shadow. "We need to talk," she announced, stepping inside without invitation. "No, we don't." Clay continued working on his current piece. "Everything goes through the lawyers now. This is ridiculous, Clay." Celeste moved closer, using the tone that used to work on him. "We can work this out ourselves for Sophie's sake." Sophie's sake. Clay finally looked up, his expression arctic. "Like when you taught her to lie about being afraid of me. Or when you stole from her college fund to bankroll your boyfriend's failing business. Mark stepped forward. Now wait a minute. One gas station. Clay's voice cut like a saw blade. That's all you own. Not a chain, not an empire. One failing station on Route 7. Mortgage to the hilt. Did you tell her that? When you were spending my daughter's money? Color drained from Celeste's face. She turned to Mark. What's he talking about, baby? Or he's lying. The bankruptcy filing says different. Clay pulled out his phone, showing them the public records Denise had found. Want to see the mortgage documents, too? Or the bounce check records? Mark? Celeste's voice shook. Tell me this isn't true. Mark's expensive smile cracked. I can explain. Get out. Clay's voice could have frozen. Hell, both of you. Before I call the police about the theft, they left. Celeste's heels clicking rapidly on the concrete. Mark trailing behind, trying to explain. Clay watched them go, satisfaction mixing with disgust. His phone buzzed. Jessica heard raised voices. The text read, "You okay? Got fresh coffee and pie if you need it." Clay smiled slightly. Her diner was just across the street. She'd probably seen Celeste's car pull up. "Rain check," he texted back. "But thanks." Denise beside him, watching Celeste's lawyer paint him as an unstable veteran. "Your Honor," the other lawyer droned. "Mr. Reed's military service, while admirable, has left him ill-equipped for full-time parenting. His daughter reports feeling afraid." "Objection, Your Honor." Denise stood. "Hearsay and contradicted by expert testimony. Sustained." Furthermore, Celeste's lawyer continued, "Mr. Reed's business keeps him working long hours." "Your Honor," Denise interrupted again, "I'd like to present evidence of systematic parental alienation, financial fraud, and child neglect." For the next hour, she methodically destroyed Celeste's case. Videos of Sophie's natural interactions with Clay, Dr. Chun's report, the teacher documentation, bank records showing Celeste's theft. Furthermore, Denise continued, Mrs. Reed's claims about her partner's financial stability are fraudulent. Mark Davis owns one failing gas station, not a chain. He's currently facing bankruptcy proceedings, and Mrs. Reed has been funneling money from the family accounts to support his failing business. Celeste's face went white. She turned to Mark, who suddenly seemed very interested in his expensive shoes. The judge reviewed the evidence carefully before speaking. Based on the overwhelming evidence of parental alienation and Mrs. Reed's apparent instability, I'm awarding temporary full custody to Mr. Reed. Mrs. Reed will have supervised visitation only, pending completion of parenting classes and counseling. Clay maintained his composure, but inside triumph surged. First blood in this war went to him. Later that night, he tucked Sophie into bed. She seemed lighter, more like herself. Daddy. Yes, Princess. I'm sorry I said those things about being scared of you. Her small face was serious in the glow of her nightlight. Mom said I had to, or you'd take me away from her. Clay swallowed hard. You never have to be scared of me, Sophie. And you never have to say things you don't mean. I know. She hugged him tight. Can we work on the dollhouse tomorrow? I have new ideas for the fairy workshop. Of course, he kissed her forehead. Sweet dreams, Princess. Downstairs, his phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Heard about the hearing. Congratulations. Coffee tomorrow? Clay smiled slightly. Maybe something good could come from all this chaos, but he didn't fool himself. This was just the first battle. Celeste wouldn't give up easily. She'd keep fighting, keep trying to manipulate Sophie. That was fine with Clay. He'd meant what he said about never forgiving betrayal. Celeste had declared war on their family. Now, she'd learn exactly what she was up against. The next morning, the weekend brought a new challenge. Celeste's supervised visitation was scheduled at the community center. Clay walked Sophie to the entrance where a court-appointed supervisor waited. Remember what we talked about? Clay knelt to Sophie's level. If anything makes you uncomfortable, tell Mrs. Rivera right away. Sophie finished. No, Daddy. The supervisor, Elena Rivera, gave them a reassuring smile. We'll be right in the activity room. 2 hours, just like the court ordered. Clay watched them disappear inside, fighting the urge to follow. He planned to wait in his truck, but the smell of coffee drew him to Jessica's diner across the street. "Visitation day?" she asked as he slumped at the counter. "That obvious? You've got that worried dad look." She slid a piece of apple pie in front of him on the house. "Thanks." Clay picked up his fork and set it down again. "I keep waiting for Celeste's next move. She's too quiet. My ex was like that." Jessica leaned on the counter real sweet in front of the supervisor, then tried using Tommy's weekend visits to pump him for information, looking for anything he could use against me in court. Clay's hand tightened on his coffee mug. "Sophie's too young to understand those games. But you're not." Jessica's eyes were understanding. "Document everything, every comment, every innocent question she asked Sophie. Build your case." Before Clay could respond, the diner door chimed. Mark walked in, his expensive suit looking slightly rumpled. "Clay." He glanced around nervously. "Can we talk?" "No." "Look, about the money," Clay said it slowly. "The money you helped steal from my daughter's future. That money?" "I can explain." Mark held up his hands. "Celeste said it was a loan that you'd agreed. Get out. Just listen." Jessica stepped around the counter. He said, "Get out or I call the police about the harassment." Mark backed away. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is." Clay's voice could have cut steel. "Tell Celeste if she wants to discuss the theft, she can do it in court." After Mark left, Jessica touched Clay's arm. "You okay?" "Fine." He managed a slight smile. "Thanks for the backup. Anytime." She squeezed his arm before moving to help other customers. Clay watched her work, appreciating how she handled everything with quiet confidence. No drama, no games, just honest strength. His phone buzzed. "Denise, got some interesting information about Mark," she said when he answered. "Seems he's been sued before 3 times by other women. Want to guess the pattern?" Clay's jaw tightened. "Tell me." "Gets involved with wealthy or double-income women, convinces them to invest in his businesses, then disappears when the money runs out." Keys clicked in the background. "One of them lost her house. Can we use this?" "Already subpoenaed the court records." "But that's not all." Denise's voice held grim satisfaction. "Remember those bank transfers? Found 6 more accounts. Celeste has been busy." Clay documented everything, building his arsenal. Every piece of evidence was another nail in Celeste's coffin. The visitation ended right on schedule. Sophie bounced out, seemingly okay, but Clay noticed she was quieter on the drive home. "Everything all right, princess?" Sophie fidgeted with her seatbelt. "Mom said some stuff. Said you didn't love me anymore. That you were replacing us." Clay pulled into their driveway, turning to face his daughter. "Sophie, look at me. No one could ever replace you, ever. Miss Jessica is just a friend who's helping us through a tough time. Like how Mom said Mark was helping her." "No." Clay kept his voice firm. "Very different. Your mom made some choices that hurt our family. I'm making choices to protect you." Sophie considered this. "Is that why we have to record everything? To stay safe?" "Something like that." Clay helped her out of the truck. "Want to help me with dinner? We can make those funny face pancakes you like." Later that night, he called Denise to report the visitation conversation. Classic alienation tactics. His lawyer said she's trying to poison Sophie against any potential support system. Document everything. Mrs. Rivera's report should help too. The next week brought more revelations. Clay's financial investigator uncovered a pattern of unauthorized charges on their joint credit cards, expensive hotels, jewelry, shopping sprees. All while Sophie needed new school clothes and supplies. "Your wife's been living quite well on your deployment pay," the investigator noted, spreading bank statements across Clay's workshop table. "Look at these charges. Spa days, designer boutiques, weekend trips to Chicago." Clay studied the evidence, anger building, all while telling me, "We barely had enough for bills, there's more." The investigator pulled out more papers, found some interesting connections between Mark and previous fraud cases. Nothing prosecuted, but several complaints filed. "Send everything to Denise." That evening, Clay took Sophie to Jessica's diner for dinner. His daughter was slowly returning to her old self, chattering about school and her upcoming dance recital. "Can Miss Jessica come watch me dance?" Sophie asked, attacking her chocolate milk. "She makes good cookies." Clay glanced at Jessica, who was refilling coffee at a nearby table. "We can ask her. Already got my ticket." Jessica called over. "Tommy's coming too. He's excited to see your solo," Sophie beamed. "I'm going to be a butterfly with sparkly wings and everything." The door chimed. Celeste walked in, Mark conspicuously absent. "Well, isn't this cozy?" Her voice dripped acid. "Playing happy families already, Mom?" Sophie's smile faded. "Mrs. Reed." Jessica stepped forward. "This is a family restaurant. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Celeste ignored her. "Sophie, honey, go wait in my car. Mommy needs to talk to Daddy." "She's not going anywhere." Clay's voice was steel. "We have a custody order, Celeste. Your visitation isn't until Saturday. That ridiculous order is court-mandated." Jessica moved closer. "Like the restraining order I'm about to file if you don't leave my restaurant." Celeste's mask cracked. "You think you can replace me? Play mommy to my daughter? No one's replacing anyone." Clay stood. "But you're leaving now before I call the police." "Out!" Sophie burst into tears. Clay held her while Jessica quietly cleared their table, keeping other customers away. "I hate this," Sophie sobbed. "I hate fighting." "I know, Princess." Clay stroked her hair. "I know." That night, unable to sleep, Clay sat in his workshop. The half-finished dollhouse sat on his bench, waiting for paint and tiny furniture. He'd built it as a symbol of hope, something beautiful rising from the chaos. His phone lit up with a text from Jessica. "Sophie, getting there," he replied. "Thanks for earlier. Anytime. We protect our own." Clay smiled slightly. "Our own? You know what I mean. Coffee tomorrow? Wouldn't miss it." The next morning brought another court date. This time, Celeste's lawyer tried arguing that Clay's business was unstable. "Your Honor, Mr. Reed's income varies significantly month to month." "Yes," Denise interrupted, "because he creates custom furniture pieces that sell for thousands of dollars. Would the court like to see his business records? Or perhaps the numerous articles featuring his work in home design magazines?" She produced documentation of Clay's steady income, customer testimonials, and press coverage of his craftsmanship. Meanwhile, Denise continued, "Mrs. Reed has been systematically draining family accounts to support her partner's failing business ventures. We have evidence of multiple unauthorized transfers." "Objection." Celeste's lawyer shot to his feet. "These allegations are documented in detail." Denise smiled coldly, producing more papers along with Mrs. Reed's excessive personal spending during Mr. Reed's deployment, all while claiming poverty when it came to their daughter's needs. The judge reviewed everything carefully. "Mrs. Reed," he said finally, "this court takes a very dim view of financial misconduct, especially when it impacts a child's welfare. The temporary custody order will stand. Additionally, you are hereby ordered to provide a full account of all expenditures from joint accounts within 7 days." Outside the courtroom, Celeste caught up to Clay. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she hissed. "Destroying everything I built. You destroyed it yourself." Clay didn't even look at her. "Every lie, every manipulation, every dollar you stole from our daughter's future. That was all you. I deserve better than this boring suburban life." "Then you should have divorced me, honestly." Clay finally turned to her. "Instead, you chose to betray everything we built to use our daughter as a weapon. Remember that when you're living in Mark's apartment above his failing gas station." He walked away, leaving her sputtering with rage. That evening, Clay took Sophie to the park. She was getting better at the monkey bars, swinging across with growing confidence. "Daddy," she called from the top of the slide, "are you and Miss Jessica going to get married?" Clay nearly choked on his water. "What? No, Princess. We're just friends, but you smile more when she's around." Sophie slid down, landing with a thump. "And she makes good pancakes. And she helped when Mom was being mean. Life's not that simple, kiddo." "Why not?" Sophie started climbing again. "You're nice to each other, and she doesn't make you sad like Mom does." Out of the mouths of babes, Clay thought. Later at Jessica's diner, he recounted the conversation. She laughed, but her eyes were soft. Smart kid you've got there. Too smart. He gotta loss hurt sometimes. Clay studied his coffee. She sees everything. That's not a bad thing. Jessica refilled his cup. Me? And she'll understand the truth when she's older. Their eyes met, held. The moment stretched, full of possibility. The door chimed, breaking the spell. Regular customers filed in for the dinner rush. Rain check on that conversation. Jessica smiled. Count on it. The war wasn't over. Celeste would keep fighting, keep trying to manipulate situations to her advantage. But Clay was ready. He had truth on his side. He had Sophie's love. And maybe, just maybe, he had a chance at something new with someone who understood what really mattered. For now, that was enough. The morning of the final custody hearing dawned cold and clear. Clay stood in his workshop, the scent of sawdust and varnish filling his lungs as his hands ran over the completed dollhouse. Every detail was perfect, tiny furniture crafted to scale, rooms painted in Sophie's chosen colors, even a miniature workshop in the back with microscopic tools he had carved himself. One last check, he muttered, opening the tiny front door. Inside, each room told a story. The kitchen, with its diminutive table set for 3, each chair hand-carved with delicate details. The living room with a doll-sized couch positioned to catch sunlight from real working windows. Sophie's bedroom done in pink and purple, just as she'd requested, with a tiny fairy door in the corner. His phone buzzed. "Denise, you ready for this?" his lawyer asked without preamble. More than ready. Clay checked his watch. "How's our evidence looking?" "Rockalid. Financial records, psychological evaluations, witness statements. We've got it all. But Celeste's lawyer is planning something. They've added 3 witnesses to their list late yesterday. Bad. That's the interesting part." Keys clicked in the background. One is Mark's ex-wife, Angela Harris, the one who lost her house to his schemes. She flew in this morning from Chicago. Clay straightened. "I thought she refused to testify, said it was too painful to revisit. Changed her mind yesterday. Seems Mark's been up to his old tricks again." More clicking. "She found evidence of him setting up accounts in her name, trying to secure new loans. Classic identity theft. He's gotten sloppy, desperate, made mistakes like targeting someone who already knows his game." "Exactly. Angela brought documentation, bank records, loan applications, even recorded phone calls. Mark thought she was too broken to fight back. Big mistake. He's getting desperate." Clay observed, reaching for his coffee. "They both are." Our forensic found 6 more hidden accounts under variations of Celeste's name, all linked to offshore accounts Mark controls. She's been busy moving money around trying to hide the paper trail. But here's the kicker. She used Sophie's social security number for 2 of them. Clay's grip tightened on his mug. "She's stealing our daughter's identity now, which gives us grounds for criminal charges, not just civil penalties. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is very interested in their little operation." "Can we use all this today? Already added to our exhibits?" Denise's smile was audible. "Be at the courthouse by 8. And Clay, wear your military dress uniform. You sure about that?" With Celeste pushing the unstable veteran angle. "Trust me, let's show the court what a real military man looks like, not her twisted fantasy version. Bring your service medals too." After hanging up, Clay moved through his morning routine with military precision. Sophie was staying with Jessica during the hearing. They'd agreed it was better for her to avoid the courthouse drama. He stopped by the diner first. The morning rush hadn't started yet, but delicious smells wafted from the kitchen where Jessica was prepping for the day. Sophie sat at the counter with Tommy, helping him stock sugar packets and napkins while chattering about her school art project. "Daddy!" She ran to hug him, careful not to wrinkle his uniform. "You look fancy, like in my school pictures from when you were away." "Very handsome," Jessica agreed, bringing him coffee. Her eyes held a mix of admiration and concern as they took in his medals. "Sure you don't want backup at the courthouse?" Martha offered to watch the diner. "You're already helping by watching Sophie." Clay squeezed her hand. "Besides, someone needs to keep this place running. I can handle it." Tommy piped up, puffing out his chest. "Sophie's the best assistant manager we've ever had. Yeah, we make a great team." Sophie beamed at the title. Tommy's teaching me how to make chocolate milk the fancy way, with extra bubbles. Her smile faded quickly, though, small fingers playing with her napkin. Mom's being mean again, isn't she? That's why there's another court thing. Clay knelt to her level, meeting her eyes. Remember what we talked about? Sometimes grown-ups need help making good choices. That's what the judge is for. Like when Tommy helps me choose good breakfast sides. Sophie brightened slightly. He said, French toast and ice cream isn't a good combination, even though it sounds yummy. That's because Tommy's smart. Clay ruffled her hair. Just like you, ice cream is for after-dinner squirt. Tommy chimed in, restocking the napkin holders. But maybe if you're extra good for Miss Jessica today. Really? Sophie's eyes lit up. We'll see. Jessica said, giving Tommy a mock stern look. Someone's getting generous with my ice cream supply. Be good for Miss Jessica and Tommy. Okay. Clay hugged Sophie tight. I'll pick you up after. Promise? Sophie's voice went small. Double promise with sprinkles on top. He met her eyes. Nothing's keeping me from coming back for you, princess. Nothing ever will. Outside, Jessica followed him to his truck. Clay, wait! He turned. She stood close, coffee pot forgotten in her hand. Morning sun catching auburn highlights in her hair. Whatever happens in there, she set the pot down on a nearby table. We've got your back, all of us. Martha's closing her coffee shop to come testify. Half my morning regulars are ready to speak up about Celeste's behavior, even Mr. Jenkins, and you know how he hates missing his morning crossword time. The whole town doesn't need to get involved. Yes, they do, Jessica's eyes flashed. We've all watched Celeste parade around with Mark while you were deployed. Watched her neglect Sophie. This community takes care of its own. Clay, you and Sophie, you're ours. Thank you. His voice was rough. For everything. For watching Sophie. For... Jessica stretched up and kissed him quick, soft, gone before he could react. For luck, she whispered. Now go get your daughter back. At the courthouse, Denise waited with a thick portfolio of documents, her sharp suit matching her sharp smile. Ready to end this? More than ready. Good, because we just got more ammunition. She handed him a folder. Mark's been busy this morning. Tried to clean out 3 bank accounts and book a flight to Mexico. My investigator's been tracking his moves since dawn, running already like the rat he is. Denise's smile turned predatory. But he's not going anywhere. I've already alerted the FBI. They're very interested in his creative banking practices. They entered the courtroom to find it surprisingly full. Clay recognized faces from around town. Martha Chun from the coffee shop, his regular customers, even Sophie's dance teacher. The community had shown up in force. Celeste sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing an expensive suit that looked new. But Clay noticed the fake designer watch. Her real ones had probably been sold to cover Mark's debts. Her fingers tapped nervously on the table, French manicure chipped and growing out. Speaking of Mark, he slouched in the back row, looking distinctly uncomfortable in his rumpled designer suit. 3 rows behind him sat a sharp-featured woman Clay didn't recognize. She stared at Mark's back like she was imagining target practice. Mark's ex, Denise whispered. Angela Harris. Wait until you hear what she has to say. Woman's out for blood. Judge Grayson entered, looking through a thick case file. Quite a lot of new evidence submitted. Mrs. Reed's counsel, you requested to speak first. Celeste's lawyer stood, smoothing his tie nervously. Yes, Your Honor. We intend to demonstrate that Mr. Reed's military service has left him emotionally compromised. Objection! Denise's voice cracked like a whip. Counsel is attempting to use Mr. Reed's honorable service against him without any supporting evidence of actual instability. Where is your evidence? Judge Grayson asked. Celeste's lawyer. Medical records, professional evaluations. We have witnesses who have observed no actual incidents. Denise cut in. Meanwhile, we have extensive documentation of Mrs. Reed's emotional manipulation of their daughter, financial fraud, and conspiracy with Mr. Davis to defraud not only Mr. Reed, but multiple other victims. The judge raised an eyebrow. Serious allegations. Your evidence, first witness. Your Honor, Angela Harris. Mark's ex-wife took the stand, spine straight as a steel rod. She fixed Mark with a cold stare before turning to face the court, her voice clear and strong. "I met Mark Davis 3 years ago at a charity fundraiser," she began. "He was charming, successful, or so I thought. He talked about his chain of gas stations, his real estate developments, his import-export business. It all sounded so impressive." "What happened next, Ms. Harris?" Denise asked. "He convinced me to invest, said he needed capital for expansion, started small, 20,000 here, 30,000 there, always had paperwork that looked legitimate. By the time I realized it was all fake, I'd lost everything. My house, my savings, my credit rating. And, has Mr. Davis attempted to contact you recently?" "Yes." Angela's voice hardened. "2 weeks ago, I started getting alerts from my bank. Someone was trying to open new accounts using my information, loan applications in my name, credit cards I never applied for. Fortunately, the fraud alerts caught it." "Are you the only victim?" "No, there are others. We've started a support group, 12 women so far, all with similar stories. Always the same pattern. Find someone with assets or good credit. Convince them to invest. Drain them dry. Then move on to the next target." Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Celeste's face had gone pale. "Miss Harris," Denise pulled out a stack of documents. "Can you identify these bank records?" Angela examined them. "Yes, these are the fraudulent accounts opened in my name. And these," her eyes narrowed, "these are from accounts Mark opened using my late mother's social security number after she passed away." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Judge Grayson's expression darkened. "Miss Harris, are you aware of any connection between Mr. Davis and Mrs. Reed?" "Only what I've discovered recently. Looking through the bank records, I found transfers from accounts controlled by Celeste Reed to some of Mark's companies, the same companies he used to defraud me." Denise produced more documents. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter these bank records into evidence. They show systematic draining of the Reed family accounts while Mr. Reed was deployed overseas." For the next hour, she methodically laid out the evidence. Page after page of unauthorized transfers, hidden accounts, credit cards opened in Clay's name without his knowledge. On March 15th, Denise pointed to a specific transaction on the courtroom's display screen. Mrs. Reed, she told Mr. Reed they couldn't afford new school clothes for their daughter. The evidence continued mounting. Martha Chun testified about seeing Celeste with Mark at expensive restaurants while Clay was deployed. Jessica spoke about Sophie's anxiety after supervised visits. Even Tommy testified about overhearing Celeste pressure Sophie to say she was scared of Clay. Finally, Dr. Chun presented her complete psychological evaluation. "The evidence of parental alienation is overwhelming," she stated firmly. "Mrs. Reed has systematically attempted to damage Sophie's relationship with her father through emotional manipulation, coached responses, and exploitation of normal childhood fears." "Could you give specific examples?" Denise asked. Mrs. Reed told Sophie that her father's military service made him dangerous. She coached Sophie to say she was afraid, promising rewards for telling the truth, her version of the truth. When Sophie resisted, Mrs. Reed used guilt and emotional manipulation. How has this affected Sophie? She shows clear signs of anxiety and confusion. Her natural bond with her father was strong, but Mrs. Reed's manipulation created artificial fear and doubt. In my professional opinion, continuing this behavior would cause lasting psychological harm. Celeste's mask finally cracked when Denise presented the complete financial records. As you can see, Your Honor, Denise pointed to specific transactions on the courtroom's display screen. Mrs. Reed transferred over $70,000 to Mr. Davis's accounts during Mr. Reed's deployment. Money earmarked for Sophie's education and family emergencies. "That was my money too," Celeste burst out, standing abruptly. "I deserved better than living off a soldier's pay and whatever he made from his precious wooden toys." "Mrs. Reed," Judge Grayson's voice cut like a blade, "control yourself or you'll be held in contempt." No, let's hear it. Denise's smile was razor sharp. Tell us exactly what you deserved, Mrs. Reed. The designer clothes, the spa weekends, the luxury car payments, all while your daughter went without basic necessities. You don't understand, Celeste's voice cracked. Mark had plans, real plans, not just small-town furniture making. We were going to be somebody like your other victims, Mr. Davis. Denise turned to where Mark had been sitting, only to find his seat empty. Where is your CO defendant? A commotion erupted in the hallway. Moments later, 2 FBI agents entered, escorting a handcuffed Mark. Your Honor, one agent addressed the judge. We apologize for the interruption. Mr. Davis was attempting to flee the jurisdiction. We found him at the private airport with false identification and over $50,000 in cash. Judge Grayson's expression hardened. Mr. Davis approached the bench. Mark shuffled forward, expensive suit wrinkled, his smooth facade crumbling. Your Honor, I can explain. Save it for your criminal trial. The judge turned to the agents. I assume you have grounds for arrest, multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and financial crimes across state lines. The agent confirmed. We've been building this case for months. Take him into custody. Judge Grayson turned back to the courtroom. Mrs. Reed's counsel, do you wish to continue? Celeste's lawyer looked defeated. Your Honor, in light of these developments, you mean now that her partner in crime is headed to federal prison? Denise interjected. Your Honor, we haven't even addressed Mrs. Reed's most egregious actions. Using Sophie's social security number to open fraudulent accounts? That's a lie, Celeste shrieked. Mark did that, not me. Your signature is on the applications. Denise produced more documents, along with evidence that you used these accounts to funnel money from Sophie's college fund into Mr. Davis's schemes. The judge reviewed the new evidence, his expression growing darker. Mrs. Reed, do you understand the severity of these allegations? Identity theft of a minor child is a serious federal offense. Celeste slumped in her chair, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. Your Honor, Denise continued, we ask the court to consider all evidence presented, the systematic financial fraud, documented parental alienation, and Mrs. Reed's clear prioritization of her criminal activities over her daughter's welfare. Judge Grayson spent several minutes reviewing his notes. The courtroom silent, except for Celeste's muffled sobs. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, he began. Finally, this court finds Mrs. Reed's conduct has been detrimental to the child's well-being. The systematic financial misconduct, documented parental alienation, and attempts to manipulate both the child and this court are deeply troubling. He fixed Celeste with a stern glare. Full custody is awarded to Mr. Reed. Mrs. Reed will have supervised visitation only, contingent upon completion of parenting classes, psychological evaluation, and full cooperation with federal authorities regarding the financial crimes investigation. You can't do this, Celeste's voice cracked. I'm her mother, a mother who stole her child's identity for financial gain, Judge Grayson replied coldly. A mother who manipulated her daughter into lying about her father. Be grateful you're not being taken into custody today. This court orders you to repay all misappropriated funds with interest. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order. You are not to approach Mr. Reed or Sophie outside of court-approved supervised visitation. But where am I supposed to go? Celeste's voice was small. Everything's in Mark's name. Perhaps you should have considered that before engaging in fraud, the judge responded. This court is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, the community rallied around Clay. Martha Chun hugged him tightly. Never doubted you for a minute, dear. Sophie deserves her father. Speaking of Sophie, Denise checked her phone. My investigator just sent an update. Mark had a private plane waiting. Tickets to Mexico, new identities for him and Celeste. He was planning to run with your money. What happens to them now? Mark's facing federal charges in multiple states. Denise's smile was grim. As for Celeste, plea deal. She's cooperating with authorities, probation and restitution payments. She's working retail now, minimum wage. Quite a change from her luxury lifestyle. Clay nodded grimly. Sophie's college fund. We'll recover most of it through asset seizure plus interest. Denise squeezed his arm. Go get your daughter. The legal cleanup is my job. At Jessica's diner, the lunch rush was in full swing, but Sophie spotted him immediately through the window. She burst out the door, dodging between customers. "Daddy!" She launched herself into his arms. "Did you win? Can I come home?" Clay scooped her up, holding her close. "Yes to both, princess. No more confusion. No more games." "What about Mom?" Sophie's voice went quiet. "She'll still see you sometimes, but only with Mrs. Rivera there to help make sure everyone behaves." Sophie considered this, twisting a pigtail around her finger, like how Tommy's mom watches him when his dad visits. Something like that. Clay sat her down. "Want to see your surprise? It's finished." Sophie's eyes lit up. The dollhouse complete with tiny furniture and a fairy workshop. He turned to Jessica, who was watching them with a warm smile. "Want to come see? We could all have dinner after. Let me grab my coat." Jessica turned to Tommy. "Can you handle closing up?" "Got it covered," Tommy grinned. "Sophie already taught me the proper sugar packet stacking technique. Very scientific." At the workshop, Sophie explored every detail of the dollhouse, while Jessica admired Clay's craftsmanship. The late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching dust motes and wood shavings in golden light. "This is incredible," Jessica said softly, examining a tiny chair. "The detail work is amazing. How long did these pieces take?" "Lost track," Clay admitted. "Started the day after I got back. Needed something to focus on during—" He glanced at Sophie, lowered his voice. "Everything. You really pour your heart into your work. It's all I know how to do." Clay watched Sophie arranging tiny furniture. "Build things. Protect what matters. You do it well." Jessica's hand found his, both things. The moment was interrupted by Sophie's excited squeal. "Daddy, the workshop has tiny tools, and look, there's 3 chairs at the kitchen table, one for you, one for me, and one for Miss Jessica." Clay met Jessica's eyes, saw his own hope reflected there. "Smart kid, gets it from her dad." Jessica squeezed his hand. Over the next few weeks, news trickled in about Celeste and Mark's downfall. Mark faced multiple federal indictments in 3 states. His web of fraud had finally collapsed, taking Celeste down with it. 10 to 15 year time, and Celeste plea deal. She's cooperating with authorities. Denise shuffled papers, probation, and restitution payments, looking at minimum wage retail now. Clay felt no satisfaction in their downfall, only relief that Sophie was protected from their manipulation. His daughter was healing, showing more of her old spark every day. The darkness Celeste had tried to plant in her mind was fading, replaced by the security of knowing she was truly loved and protected. The community rallied around them. Martha brought coffee and pastries to the workshop. Sophie's dance teacher gave her extra lessons free of charge. Even Mr. Jenkins, the grumpy retired judge who lived next door, started leaving his newspaper on Clay's porch every morning. One Saturday morning, Clay sat at his workbench, sketching plans for a new project, a family dining table large enough for 4, maybe more someday. Jessica had mentioned hosting holiday dinners, bringing their families together. "That's a big table," Sophie observed, perched on her special stool. She'd spent more time at the workshop lately, learning to sand wood and measure twice. "Big enough for everyone," Clay agreed. "What do you think about adding some special details?" Sophie's face lit up. "Can we carve fairy patterns in the legs? Like tiny doors?" "Whatever you want, princess. And space for Tommy, too. He says, we're like his second family now." Clay smiled. Plenty of space. His phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Kids are plotting something for the fall festival. Tommy and Sophie have a super secret business plan. Should we be worried?" "Probably." He texted back. "Dinner tonight always." He meant what he said about never forgiving betrayal. Celeste and Mark had chosen their path, and now they'd walk it alone. Their attempts to destroy what he built had failed, their schemes exposed to the harsh light of truth. But forgiveness wasn't the same as moving forward. He had a daughter to raise, a business to run, and a new chance at happiness with someone who understood what really mattered. The war was over. Clay had won. Not just custody, but something more precious. a future free from manipulation and lies, a chance to build something real, something lasting with people who valued truth and loyalty as much as he did. Sophie was safe. The rest would work itself out. One day at a time, one piece of carefully crafted furniture, one family dinner, one step forward into a future bright with possibility. As if reading his thoughts, Sophie looked up from her sketching. "Daddy." "Yes, Princess. Are we going to be okay now?" Clay pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "We already are, Sophie. We already are."